Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast, bringing you the latest updates from the world of sports, gambling, and pop culture. Because you can't have a show without hot takes or a Tiger King meme these days. Know what I'm saying? Now, with over 200 episodes and ready to get after it again, here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
All right, folks, the Super Bowl has ended, and in shocking fashion, to say the least, because of how uncompetitive the game was. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are your NFL champions with a 31-9 victory over the Chiefs. That is right, folks. The Chiefs held without a touchdown in this game. Didn't reach double digits. There were so many records broken for the Chiefs scoring-wise of how inept the offense was. And, folks are going to talk about a lot of things, but the area of concern that I will say here is the line of scrimmage was dominated by Tampa Bay start to finish on the defensive line and on the offensive line side, but mostly on the defensive line side. And, the guy who's not going to get talked about, there will be names talked about, and the media will talk about Tom Brady for 98% of the time. Point blank. 98% of the time. But the guys who are not going to be talked about would be defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, Jason Pierre-Paul on the outside as the pass rush, along with Shaq Barrett on the other end as the pass rusher, and in the middle, Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea. They completely dominated this game with the Chiefs' offensive line. Yes, the Chiefs had some backups in there as the tackles, but there was pressure coming up the middle too. Patrick Mahomes was under duress this entire game, and the only reason why this wasn't even a bigger blowout is because of Patrick Mahomes trying to keep plays alive. And even then, Patrick Mahomes got let down by his teammates dropping balls. There were too many drops by the Chiefs on crucial plays where normally you would say the Chiefs are going to get that one back, give them another opportunity, and it just never happened. They kept dropping balls and still kept dropping balls. It never got fixed, and they had bad breaks. They were slipping. There are a lot of excuses you can make for the Chiefs, but they got beat. They got straight up beat by Tampa Bay. So, Callie, you were watching this game too. I'm bringing you on. But, that's the truth of the matter. Kansas City's offense got beat straight up by Tampa Bay's defense, and the scheme Todd Bowles came up with, because they were actually able to execute the zone, the bracketing coverage on Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill while still making sure that Patrick Mahomes didn't have any time to pick out the other receivers that might have been able to win matchups on their own. Because Mahomes was under so much duress, the time to throw to find someone, he can't scan the field. The pressure was already on him, so that he was actually doing a Russell Wilson impression, because you see him running back 5-10 yards trying to find someone just to create an angle. I literally thought I was watching Russell Wilson play, because the pass rush was on him so much. It felt like watching a Seahawks game, to be honest, like how badly the Chiefs O-line played.
Yeah, look, let me tell you something. There was nothing that the Chiefs did matched up with what Tampa Bay was doing. If they couldn't run the ball, well, whatever they did, Torbell was ready for. They couldn't run the ball, they couldn't pass the ball. So there was nothing that the Chiefs did today that looked like it was going to work. It's like, if they tried to run the ball, it was stopping them short. They got 2 yards, maybe 4 yards.
Well, that was one thing that was one matchup where I never felt comfortable that the Chiefs were going to do anything tonight. People kept talking about the Chiefs, being able to try to establish the run game. You're not running on Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea up the middle. I said this point blank. To me, the Chiefs had to go with a pass-heavy attack. But the problem was, even with the pass-heavy attack, there was no time to actually find anyone or anyone to actually get a break out of the routes because those tackles were so overwhelmed that it was just a complete whitewash. There was no way of that being even remotely close. And yes, in the NFL, depth is always going to be an issue. But it was so noticeable how much worse the drop-off was with the Chiefs that you normally don't see with NFL teams with backups in place, that, it was just glaring on the national stage because I'm getting messages from people saying, what's going on with the Chiefs? Like, how come they can't do anything? And it's just, the backups are just completely overmatched. They're like, that's just a simple fact of the matter. It's like, you could change up the play calling and bring in some other guys to help block, but if a guy's getting beat that clean, that often, and it wasn't just the tackles. The guards were getting beat too. There was just no one on the Chiefs' offensive line had a good game. No one.
Okay, here's what you gotta do. Try and go back and remember. The one time that Patrick Mahomes made a 3-step or 4-step drop and was able to throw the ball.
It didn't happen this game.
You can't. There's no time that he was able to drop back that ball a couple times and throw it. It never was that. It was like drop back, run through, drop back, run through. There was never a time that he was able to drop back and survey the field and throw that ball. It just wasn't there today.
Yeah.
It's like he borrowed the Giants line and said, let me align for the Super Bowl.
Well, that's the kind of joke of it all, is the fact that, people are going to say Brady won this head-to-head matchup, but it wasn't. I mean, again, I'm not trying to slag on Brady, this, that, and the other. You folks can. I always say this whenever people bring up who's the greatest QB of all time discussion. The NFL is about systems and eras. It depends on the rules, when things were set up, because in certain formats, I don't think Brady survives the NFL in the 1970s, the way the league was structured with the amount of stuff defenses can do to teams. I just don't think he would have matched up well. And even if it was in the 80s, I don't necessarily think that, with the passing, the way the league operated, yeah, I think he probably does put up similar numbers to Montana overall, but you got to remember, in the 80s, you would have had to contend with some of those other defenses that, again, were doing a lot more than you would see nowadays in terms of hitting guys. So, it's a different league, and people don't acknowledge that as part of the criteria. They just look at the numbers, and it's a different argument entirely.
Yeah, if you have to run from Lawrence Taylor, you're not standing back there and throwing as much as you can.
Yeah, and that's why I always say the Brady Montana discussion is one that it's not a great one, because Montana is clearly the better mobile quarterback and is just as accurate as Brady, if not more so. It's not that I'm saying Montana's clearly the better QB, because Brady only played with Randy Moss for one season. He never got to play with a wide receiver as good as Jerry Rice for as many years. Now, obviously he had Gronk, but again, it's, the only thing I'll say is that Gronk as a tight end is without question the greatest tight end in NFL history. And the one thing I said about this game was, you want to unleash Gronk, but I never thought that Tampa would get the amount of protection available to Brady to allow Gronk to go out on pass routes. Tampa has been like forcing Gronk to stay in, and this is to Gronk's credit. He was willing to do the dirty work for Tampa all season long, just blocking because they needed Gronk to block because the line wasn't holding up as well. Tonight, for whatever reason, the Chiefs' pass rush couldn't do anything against Tampa's offensive line. I mean, I know Tristan Wirfs has been playing at an exceptionally high level as a rookie, but he looked like a Hall of Famer tonight against Frank Clark. He was beating Clark clean. Clark had a couple of flashes where he got pressure on Brady, and he may have gotten a sack on Brady, but literally, he got beat 95% of the plays tonight, and it wasn't that close. Brady had all day to throw and just do pitch and catch to guys. And if you give Tom Brady that much time, he's going to carve you alive. And, you know, with the Chiefs' issues blocking, that was basically game because, you know, if Gronk's able to go out in the middle of the field, like people forget like how good Gronk is. He doesn't have the same burst that he used to, but he knows how to get himself open. And he killed the Chiefs tonight. Absolutely destroyed them. So, I mean, this was a very straightforward game if you look at it. And, you know, we talked about this offline before. The way this game reminded me of was Super Bowl 21 with the Giants beating the Broncos. And, you know, Elway essentially kind of running for his life, trying to, like, make plays that weren't there. You know, Patrick Mahomes had, like, two of the most exciting plays of the game that went for incomplete passes because his receivers just couldn't make a play in the end zone. Like, Patrick Mahomes had, you know, stat-wise, he looks like Mahomes' stats look terrible, and people are going to forget this game and just say Mahomes had a terrible game. No, Mahomes had a very good game. Given the circumstances, he made about every play that he could have made other than catch the ball for his receivers because the Chiefs had 5 plays alone where the ball hit the receiver in the face mask. You know, and it wasn't just Tyreek Hill or Kelsey. It was multiple guys just couldn't make a play. Could not make a play for Mahomes tonight. And, you know, that basically kind of sealed the deal for the Chiefs. You know, a lot of mistakes. They were bad on special teams. Their punter was scared to death of the ball, couldn't punt. They lost the field position battle. The Chiefs did about everything wrong humanly possible, and Tampa played well tonight. Like it was the perfect storm for Patrick Mahomes. What happens if your teammates don't show up to play on the biggest stage and Tampa plays well? Because there's no way the Chiefs should be getting blown out of a Super Bowl with the talent that they have. There's no way it should happen, but it did because they weren't able to execute on basic fundamentals because, you know, like I said, you may be a backup in the league, but worst case scenario, the refs are not going to be calling holding every single play. You can't be getting beat as clean as you were by Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. If you have to hold every play, but you can't get beat as clean as they did consistently and not give Mahomes any opportunity to throw the ball down the field. As you said, when was the actual time Mahomes got to throw a 3-step drop without facing any pressure? Didn't happen. It didn't happen. And KC still had holding penalties, but honestly, the way they were getting beat, you needed to do even more holding because if you're going to be that bad, be blatant about it. Keep holding guys and make sure they can't get to Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes took some hits tonight that were clear penalties that weren't called, which is another thing that we'll talk about too, is the fact that how is Patrick Mahomes not getting any calls in the Super Bowl when he's clearly getting illegal hits on him?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. But you know what? What this reminded me of? This Chiefs team playing in this game looked like some of those Andy Reid Philadelphia team that wasn't ready for the game. You and I like Andy Reid, but this looked like the old Andy Reid that couldn't win the big game.
Well, that was the weirdest part about this game. I kept waiting for the Chiefs to make adjustments, and there were as you said, every opportunity that the Chiefs tried to make a move, Todd Bowles had a counter for it, and Andy Reid had no counter argument. And like I said, this is gonna people are gonna circle this game and say this is why Eric Bieniemy shouldn't be a head coach because he can't do it unless Andy Reid's helping him. And put up that nonsense narrative. Todd Bowles is going to get minimal credit for the work he did in this game. And that's the tragedy in all this. It's not going to be reflected in some of the commentary you'll hear. Maybe some of the ESPN guys like you might get Ryan Clark or Amina Kimes actually acknowledging the work that Bowles did, but not enough people are actually going to be talking it up. They're going to be talking it up about why Mahomes and Bieniemy and Andy Reid couldn't get the job done. That's where it's really going to be focused on, because they're going to look at it and say Brady played well and Mahomes didn't live up to the moment.
If you watch that game, you can't have it both ways. If you watch that game, and it's not that I fought Kansas City, it's that they weren't ready for what Tampa Bay threw at them.
Well, the interesting, like I said, the interesting thing about that the game tonight, you saw how much Tampa Bay's offensive line improved since they matched up in Week 12. And while, yes, the Chiefs had injuries, they really didn't change much in terms of what they were trying to do. They kind of ran with, I was expecting more plays. Like, there were a couple of plays out there that I thought the Chiefs were going to run tonight, and I didn't see them. And I don't know if it was because they were they had so little confidence in those tackles at that point, why they didn't actually open up some of the playbook in the second half. In my head, I thought we were going to see a lot more movement and jet sweep action with some of the wide receivers, try to use the speed to get Tampa moving laterally instead of being able to kind of clamp down the way they did, because they were able to be physical. And that was the other thing. We're going to talk about the refs. But Tampa was allowed to be physical on defense without racking up the penalties that the Chiefs did. And I'll leave it, and I'll expand upon that later about why that's a big deal. But, if you're allowed to be able to roughhouse, the Chiefs have to be able to counter that. And I thought the way they were going to counter it was by using their overall team speed. And we never saw those plays in the backfield where they kind of run sweeps and try to do more trick plays. They were trying to beat Tampa Bay straight up. And, the tackles just couldn't perform. So I thought there was going to be more trick plays to kind of alleviate the fact that, yeah, we're getting a lot of pressure in. I thought we were going to see a lot more trick plays, more jet sweep action type plays, and also more screens. I was stunned by the lack of screens that Kansas City did, because even though there were a couple of screen attempts that Jason Pierre-Paul knocked the ball down, Jason Pierre-Paul was a baller tonight. Just like amazing job once again, as usual, of what we would expect out of Jason Pierre-Paul in the playoffs. But I was very much stunned by the lack of creativity from the Chiefs that we normally would expect. But I think that's a testament to what Bowles was throwing at him, was that, the Chiefs really felt as though they couldn't get too cute because the tackles just couldn't perform the way that they wanted to. So usually when you get so much pressure like that, you try to invite the pressure and run screen plays so that you're sucking the pressure and still be able to dump it off. We didn't even see that being attempted by the Chiefs.
No, I thought they were scared that those plays will blow up in their face. They was even worse. You know.
But like I said, even with some of the Plan A stuff not working, Mahomes was still able to create enough of an opportunity with his mobility and keeping plays alive. It's just that, again, the drops were just in such bad spots for the Chiefs that, at a certain point, you got to be able to make certain plays, and not a single receiver on the Chiefs made a big play. And Travis Kelce is going to look, and he's going to be one of the first people to admit it, that he's just like he played a horrible game tonight. Like, Travis Kelce I think he had 10 catches for over 100 yards, but they were some of the emptiest yards you'll ever see because he had so many bad breaks. Whether he slipped, he lost a battle with the Tampa's linebackers. Like, he just did not have a good game in a matchup where, I certainly expected him to dominate. So that's where, the individual matchups, if the Chiefs were getting beat there too, like, this was a complete team loss. Like, they got beat in basically every facet of the game.
Yep. I thought at halftime he was going to come out and, tighten up things. They saw what they did in the first half. But the second half started looking kind of like the first half, and you kind of got worried at that point.
Oh, yeah. When I saw the Chiefs have to settle for a field goal, that's when I actually got worried about the game, because I said, that's not good, because, when you come out of the second half, usually you have your best kind of plays dialed up and ready to go, and they were still having issues with the blocking. And that's what I said, this is not good, because if Tampa is able to do just even a smidge on offense, like, Tampa didn't play that well on offense in the first half. It's just that in the second half, the Chiefs defense was in a bad spot where Tampa could just run between the tackles, because we all know the Chiefs defense is just soft up the middle. They can't stop the run. So in any game script where the Chiefs are down and you are in a position to run the ball, you're going to have success against the Chiefs. It's just the way it goes. It's just that it's so rare to see the Chiefs down in the second half that you don't actually get in that position all that often. But yeah, the Chiefs were in trouble by the middle of the third quarter. And, at that point I could see it, because they still couldn't figure out the protection. That was the bottom line. They could not figure out any way of giving Patrick Mahomes time other than Patrick Mahomes running for his life.
Yeah, but the problem I had with Mahomes is you've seen Mahomes already, where he's running and he runs and he throws, but he threw every ball on one foot. It's always that he's running and he got to jump on one foot and throw.
Yeah, he can't plant the foot. So I'm not sure if you heard it on the broadcast. Yeah, the turf toe for Mahomes, he has to get surgery on the foot. He can't plant his feet right now. You can see that.
I didn't see the Chiefs. I realized I was in trouble, because if he was running, whether he's running to his right or he's running to his left or he's backing up, you know what he looked like? Not this year. Remember early last year when Russell Wilson, after every game, he was running, and I think they won about 3 games and they lost a few more, and we thought the Seahawks would be down, and then he covered in the second half.
Yeah.
But Mahomes tonight looked like that Russell Wilson who was running and getting sacked every you know, 3 out of every 5 trips. He just wasn't getting time. He was throwing the ball falling. He was throwing the ball going back. And it just wasn't. No, I also thought that even some of those balls he threw with the contested catches, I thought that Tampa Bay got every break they could get because I saw pass interference in a couple of those cases.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to talk about the officiating, Callie. I really don't want to talk about the officiating in a 20-point loss. But the officiating was horrendous. It was horrendous tonight. And and I told people this before. The one thing that I will always say is in a Tom Brady type playoff game, I'm going to play the penalty yardage game and bet on the over for penalty yards because I just know that with a receiver as physical as Mike Evans, he's going to draw a lot of flags. Now, I thought the Chiefs were going to get some benefit of the doubt with the refs as well. So that was the other reason why I thought, okay, the penalty should even themselves out. But the Chiefs weren't getting anything in the first half. I mean, to me, that's where I was just shrugging my shoulders saying, guys, referee, you got to actually be somewhat even with the penalty calls because, you're calling it completely one-sided and, everyone could see what's going on. Part of what got the Chiefs out of sync was, the Chiefs defense is getting pissed off that they're getting flagged for stuff that Tampa's able to do. And that was and that's when you saw Tyrann Mathieu going off on the officials and getting into it with Tom Brady. They just the Chiefs defense lost their composure because they saw themselves as not getting any of the benefits that Tampa's defense was. The Chiefs defense wanted to be physical and they're getting flagged all over the place. Now, if you're going to call it a flag-riddled game, you got to do it on both sides. If it's only happening on one side, that's when guys start getting after it, and the refs allowed that game to get way, way too chippy. That was a very ugly-looking game where, it looked like there were going to be a couple of fights breaking out sooner than later. That ended up getting squashed, but it was very close to having a fight break out because you had a lot of shots on on Patrick Mahomes that weren't getting flagged. Meanwhile, you getting some ticky-tack pass interference calls on against some of Tampa's receivers, and everyone's looking at the referee saying, "What's going on?"
Let me give you an instance. The first half of the championship game against New England year before, last year, before the Chiefs was able to come back in the second half. I mean, New England was getting every call in that first half. And I actually thought that in this game, that some of the calls would even out. Never did. Never did. I thought that Tampa was able. No, I don't want to sound as though I'm blaming the refs for the loss. But I did think that Tampa Bay defense was able to play the way they wanted, and Bowles set it up where he wanted his defense to play one way. And I thought they played the way he wanted to play. But I didn't think it went the other way. I didn't think it went the other way. That Kansas City defense wasn't able to get the same calls that, and I guess it's a Brady thing that, if you playing them tough, they get the calls and you will get half for the call. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Orlovsky was going off about it. Like Dan Orlovsky on ESPN was going off on it on Twitter about the referees getting involved. It's like, stop trying to make yourselves part of the game. If you're gonna call it one way, you got to call it on both sides. And people don't like seeing flag riddle games, but like the way Kansas City got flagged, it was very ticky-tack, and the refs got involved way too much early on.
Like I told you, I don't want to sound as though look, let me tell you something. You play against Brady, he is going to get 65% of the flag.
Yeah. But that's why I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of going too much into the officiating, because realistically, structurally, the Chiefs were losing that game regardless, because at the end of the day, if Mahomes has to keep doing that and still can't get anyone to make a big play, because that's the thing, the Chiefs made 0 big plays tonight. It's the craziest thing. The team that is predicated on making a big play had 0 explosive plays tonight. 0. Over, and this is an Andy Reid offense. Even before Patrick Mahomes, when it was just Alex Smith, was still making prolific play. Like, this is a 5-year run of a team that makes at least 2 explosive plays a game on average, minimum.
Well, let me give you a joke. Let me give you an instant, not a joke, an instant. Okay? This game with the Giants 2007 games. The Giants outplayed the Patriots on defense. Offensively, we didn't really make a lot of plays.
No, that was a very quick running game overall, because both teams kept the clock running, but no one really had any explosive plays. It was a game where you saw first downs being made, but neither team actually scored a ton of points. It was a very low scoring game, but a quick running game, because you didn't have a ton of incomplete passes. It's just that, a lot of running and short passes, but nothing over the top. Randy Moss never could get involved in that game.
Here's the difference. I'm going to give you 2 plays. 2 plays. The Tyreek, the David Tyree pass from Eli.
Yeah.
Eli getting out of that track. The David Tyree. And, which a lot of people don't remember, the play after that, the play with oh my God, that other giant receiver.
Oh, Plaxico. I mean, Plaxico's, the Steve Smith route. So Steve Smith, yeah. Steve Smith's route to set up the red zone sequence, yeah.
This is what, my thing is this. Outside of that, the Giants would have played a great game and lost the Super Bowl. So this is what I'm saying. The problem I had was Kansas City being able to hold up the make. Because remember, in all of those plays, Eli got the time. The Tyree play, it wasn't that he got the time, it's just like magic that he got on that sack. I still, every time I watch that play, I say, he's going to get sacked. He's fucking sacked, And he got out. The problem was, they never gave Mahomes enough time to make one of those plays.
No, it was literally Mahomes trying to play sandlot football by himself, because he really did not have any support tonight. And, again, it's one of those nights. It's like, every QB outside of Mahomes has had one of those games where no one is playing well and you're just a guy just trying to make something happen. Every QB has had one of those games. It's just that Mahomes has had the benefit of never actually had a play through one of those games. Like, usually someone eventually finds a way to make a play for him.
Yeah, because if you remember, like about 2.5 minutes in the third quarter, Kansas City got the ball. And I'm like, if they score here, they got the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it's game on.
Yeah.
They never got the fucking ball. They never did anything with the ball.
They couldn't block. Like I said, that's when I knew, it was the sequence before then. That's when I knew they were in trouble because they still hadn't made any adjustments in the protection schemes to even buy an extra half second. Not even a second, just a half second for Mahomes.
Yeah, because they stopped the Chiefs. They stopped the Tampa Bay. They punted the ball back, and I'm like, okay, so they got like 2 minutes. If they score here, they got the fourth quarter.
Yeah. But that's why I was kind of questioning, because I'm saying to myself, man, if I'm a tackle in this game and I'm getting my rear end beat as badly, as a tackle, we have the mindset of, okay, I didn't do well in this play. Like, this guy's beating me. I got to do whatever it takes to slow him down. So, if you grab him inside, like underneath the collar, like, you try to find different ways of holding the dude that it's not completely obvious. But they were holding and still getting beat horribly. Like, it wasn't even, it was so bad.
Yeah, because Jason Pierre-Paul was coming on the outside. And they were fighting to hold him up. And Shaq Barrett was just coming up in the inside. And it was like, Mahomes is like, wait, this fucking guy, like, well, he's paying rent at my house or what? Because every time I look up, he's right there.
Yeah, and that's why I kept looking at him. I'm just saying, listen, I don't care how many other backups are left or how thin you are. You got to find someone who's better at holding. Like, I'm not even saying blocking. Someone who's even better at just holding a dude, because these guys can't even hold, because referees are going to give you the benefit of the doubt in the NFL. They're not going to throw a penalty flag every single play for holding. They're just not. There are plays where it's blatant holding and you see it, and referees are going to give you a break on some plays to get away with a hold. But even when they were holding, they still couldn't buy Mahomes time. That was the mind-blowing part.
The problem is, they were getting beat so fucking bad that when they were holding, he was holding on to Mahomes already.
Yeah.
So, let me tell you something. If Shaq Barrett is getting $50,000 for the way he played today, he got to go by Jason Pierre-Paul and say, yeah, 25 is yours. Because they couldn't block Jason Pierre-Paul, and Shaq Barrett is having a free run almost every freaking time.
Yeah.
It was one-on-one and the guy couldn't handle it.
Yeah. And that was I knew Jason Pierre-Paul would have a big game, but it was so demonstrably apparent how much overmatched the Chiefs' O-line was that's the part that shocked me, was that I was expecting more protection to be slid over to stop Pierre-Paul, but then bring in somebody, like, I thought we were going to see a little bit more max protect scheme and have a few more two tight end sets with the Chiefs, just to at least slow down. Like I said, the shocking part with the Chiefs is they have so much talent, they can get away with playing two tight end sets and still be able to do things on offense. There just wasn't much of anything being done in terms of the adjustments, and that's the part that kind of caught me off guard. I was really surprised by the lack of max protect schemes being used, because Mahomes was just taking hits for the sake of taking hits at that point.
Look, in the championship game, when the game was winding down and they talked with that guy that had the Achilles heel, so he's He's
Yeah,
gone.
Mitchell Schwartz.
Right, and then they had the other injury, and I'm like, well, they're gonna be missing two guys, but yeah, I know offensive line is an important thing, but I always think it's more important if you want to run the ball, but you could always pass protect. And with Mahomes, since he's a runner, you only got to pass protect a little bit because you have a mobile quarterback.
That was my rationale coming into this game.
I didn't think it would be this bad.
That's the part that shocked me was how much of a drop off there was. And like I said, if Mahomes wasn't as mobile a QB, I would have taken more account into the tackles being out. Mahomes did about as admirable of a job as he could buying time, but the tackles were that bad that it's like, man, it's like, if it was any other QB, probably outside of Russell Wilson, probably gets sacked 7 times in that game. Like there are very few QBs in this league outside of Wilson, maybe a Kyler Murray, but even with the amount of pressure Mahomes was under, I don't think Kyler Murray makes it through that entire game. The amount of hits that Mahomes was taking, like that's the thing.
Yeah. Look, I want to see tomorrow. I want to see tomorrow what the markup on this game is. I want to see what they say. But I know nothing's fair. I know nothing is ever fair because most of these who's in authority have the cake and they eat it too. So, like you say, they may blame the enemy and still don't give Todd Bowles any credit.
Yeah, I think he gets faint praise because
it's like time passed, but you don't have a fucking clock.
Listen, I will wait to hear for New York sports media to give Todd Bowles some credit for the work he did last night, but I'll hold my breath.
Let me tell you something. If Todd Bowles, and I know New York ran him out of town, and I told people, if because they ran him out of town with the thing that he couldn't develop a quarterback, even though the guru that they brought in couldn't develop a fucking quarterback either. But that's another story for another day. But the one thing they had, and they had it under Rex Ryan too, I will give him credit, but there was no drop-off from the Rex Ryan defense to the Todd Bowles defense. They were killing people. They just couldn't score, And they made the excuse that if you're going to have a young quarterback, Todd Bowles is a defensive guy and he can't develop a quarterback, which I have no fucking idea because, Bill Parcells was defensive and Phil Simms did okay. So I don't know, like that's not the thing now. Everything is a specialist. But you can't tell me that you're going to watch this game and you're going to see what happened to Mahomes and you don't give credit to Todd Bowles. Because I know, and I don't like the racial thing, but if it was a white guy there, you'd hear about the genius of the schemes that he did. Because, from the beginning of the game, and you cannot tell me that Andy Reid would come into a Super Bowl and the enemy would have a game plan and Andy Reid wouldn't have a plan that if this go wrong that I can't take it over and do so and so. So I don't want to hear that shit. Because even last year and the year before, when they fell short, everybody always said, well, the enemy is all right, but I know it's Andy Reid's scheme he's running. So I don't want to hear you giving him all the blame now that, well, it's the enemy scheme and it failed. You know, because he never got all the credit before. You know, because, you know, they always, you know, because it's like the old Indianapolis Colts where when they lost, Dungy could win the big game, but when they won, Peyton Manning ran the game and he won it. So, you know, I don't want to hear that shit tomorrow. So I can't wait to hear in the matchup between Bulls and the enemy, you know, if he doesn't get it, because Todd Bowles, you know, he had a plan for the plan that they didn't come up with yet, as far as I could see today. Because every time you thought that, well, if they did this, they could do this, they never did. They never did. And Brady gonna get a lot of the talk because he won 7 and but this was nothing about Brady. He got the ball in the best position that day, and he was never under duress at all. You know. But Tampa Bay didn't win this game on offense. They won this game on defense. And anybody who don't know that, don't know nothing about the game. Yeah. But you know, but I'm waiting to hear in the morning. But I'm gonna wait and listen to Ryan Clark and oh my God, Orlovsky and Dominic Foxwood. Let me hear those guys. I want to hear those guys tomorrow, and then I'll know how it's going. Because I sure they saw the same game that I saw. Because I never saw Pat Mahomes make a 4, 5-step, 3-step, any drop, and just stand back there and put the ball. He was running left or right from beginning to end. And I think that was the game. The problem was not, and I know Tampa defense, Kansas City defense didn't stop them as much, but I think this was more about Tampa's offense, not Kansas City's offense, not being able to move that ball. Because they had chances. Yeah, they had chances. Yeah. They just never got anything going. Mahomes was running left, he was running right. If he was running backwards, he's running backwards and trying to turn. You know, 90% of the ball that Mahomes threw, he never knew what happened until he got up off the ground. Yeah. And I think that was one of the problems. He never got to plant his foot and actually throw that ball downfield. Yeah. But anyway, I'll give you a shot tomorrow and see what's what.
Yep. Take it easy, Callie. We'll catch up. I'm sure there's more of a breakdown to come on this, but you take it easy.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear what they actually saw in the game that I didn't see.
Yeah, because this was a fairly straightforward game, so there's not much hiding to be done.
That's what I'm saying. I'm waiting to see how they call it. You know, Todd Bowles outplayed the enemy or the enemy and Andy Reid. They just never solved that, and I thought Kansas City lost this game more on offense than on defense. Yes, the defense gave up some points, but it was because the offense put them in awkward positions because the offense could never get going. You know, they had Mahomes running every time. And the fact that when they did get a break or two, they didn't hold on to the ball. There were way too many drops. And yes, I know the ball was thrown under duress, but there's times you got to know it ain't going to always come as a lollipop. You may have to go and get it. And To me, they didn't. I thought Tyreek Hill didn't even play today.
Well, that's why Antoine Winfield, and this is how you know we're getting old, is like Antoine Winfield Jr. is just dominated Tyreek Hill and taunted him during the game, but he beat him. He beat him straight up
all the time. Wait a minute, is he that guy who was to play in Minnesota? Kid?
Yeah, exactly. That's how you know. Antoine Winfield basically retired less than 3 years ago, and his son's playing in the league. Like,
I'm getting old. I know I'm getting old.
When I heard Antoine Winfield's name being brought up, I'm like, oh, I thought he just retired. He came back. Like that's how you know. Like when you're following the league, it's just like, wait a second, what?
Yeah, I know, but yeah, they got beat. They got beat on defense because Tampa Bay was able to take away their best guy, and they on offense they couldn't get their best guy to rise up above their best guy. So that is it. But let's wait till tomorrow and see what else they're gonna tell us. Yeah. All right. So we're talking in the morning.
All right, take it easy, Kelly.
Okay, son. All right. Okay.
All right. So, I mean, it's just a lot of questions that will be asked over the next couple of days. But, pretty straightforward how this game went down. It's just, as I said, pretty much just both lines of scrimmage dominated by Tampa Bay, and Chiefs never got in traction at all this entire game. So, Mahomes did what he could, but, it's a team sport. At the end of the day, it is still a team sport, no matter how many times people want to slice it up one way or the other. So, you just you tip your hat to Tampa's coaching staff and getting the players ready. The players execute the game plan, and that's pretty much it. Not much else to say on that, other than, I just was surprised at how much of a difference depth-wise, like Kansas City was, because, NFL teams go through injuries all the time. That's nothing new. So being that lackluster from a tackle standpoint, that was shocking how bad the play was, but give Tampa credit. They took advantage of the matchups and made the most of it. But we do get a rare occurrence of a Super Bowl champion going back to the title game and then getting blown out. It is a very bizarre circumstances to cap off a very bizarre year in the NFL as a whole. Some things you've never seen before, and hopefully we never see again with the relatively empty stadium. I mean, we did have some fans for the Super Bowl tonight. Obviously, nothing what we would normally see, but just a very bizarre year overall, to say the least. So that's going to do it for the show tonight. I know some of you are going to be talking about Gronk and how I was wrong, but I will say this: when you come up with your game theory strategies on what are the likely outcomes, the outcome of Gronk being unleashed and having the ability to run enough pass routes to get there, from a game script standpoint, if you look through everything that Tampa Bay has done this entire season, this was the least amount of pressure Tom Brady has faced the entire year against a pass rush that is top 10 in the league. Again, inexplicable to see that actually happen in the biggest game of the year. But, Chris Jones being in witness protection, I don't know what happened to the Chiefs pass rush up the middle. There was no pressure whatsoever. And that is where Tom Brady feasts. I mean, that was one of the easiest games Tampa has had to play all year, outside of maybe that game against the Lions towards the end of the year. I don't know what else to say about it. It really was that bad from a Kansas City defensive standpoint. And, once they kind of realized that the offense wasn't getting there, they really did kind of give up in the second half. I mean, there weren't a lot of guys really trying that hard, to be honest. So, it is what it is. But, overall, still a pretty good year NFL-wise from a fantasy and DFS standpoint. But another year in the books and plenty more sports on tap. I will save a future episode for this impending Carson Wentz news that is about to happen at some point next week that I will laugh about. But that is an episode for another time. So until then, have a good night, everyone. And until next time, take it easy.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other major outlets.